What's up guys, Derek here with Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with an EDH deck tech. Today's deck tech will be for my own personal Rasputin Dreamweaver deck, also known as Rasputin the Nightmare Weaver, because he does bring the nightmares to my opponents. So first we'll talk about Rasputin. He's probably a lesser seen general than most. He's pretty cool. I think he does have some kind of kooky art. But as you can see here, he is a 6 cost, 4/1. And he's a human wizard. What's cool about Rasputin that makes him different than a lot of generals is he comes in with dream counters, and he comes in with 7 dream counters. And you can remove 1 dream counter at instant speed for no mana to prevent 1 damage to Rasputin, or to be able to generate 1 colorless mana. So it's pretty cool because the turn he comes in, you can instantly have 7 colorless mana or prevent 7 damage to him. It gives him some survival, gives him some utility to generate some mana, and also at the beginning of your upkeep he gets a dream counter back onto him. So the theme of this deck will be a flicker style deck, and we really just want to abuse flicker effects to be able to flicker in and out Rasputin, as well as all my other creatures that have comes into play effects. But Rasputin will be able to come in, generate 7 mana, I can flicker him and generate 7 more mana and have 14 mana relatively cheaply. Or more, depending on how many times I flicker him. But let's take a look at the deck. I'm going to slide Rasputin off to the side here. So we're going to go with the lands first, as it is a big chunk of the deck. We run some plains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 plains. "11 islands, Emeria the Sky Ruin, Halimar Depths, Prairie Stream, Nimbus Maze, Seachrome Coast, Azorius Guildgate, Calciform Pools, Celestial Colonnade, Glacier Fortress, Azorius Chancery, Tranquil Cove, Hallowed Fountain, Temple of Enlightenment, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, Sanctum of Ujin, and Evolving Wilds. Not really a lot going on in the mana base. It is a 2-color deck, so it doesn't have a huge amount going on. Next thing I'm going to go over is the artifacts I run. The artifacts I run are Strionic Resonator, to be able to copy a lot of my comes into play abilities and my triggered abilities. Conjurer's Closet as a flicker effect, and Spinavish because I'm going to be flickering some artifacts too, and this one is pretty devastating when flickered. Up next I'm going to go over some sweepers I run. I run a few sweepers, not very many. We run Day of Judgment, Wrath of God, Planar Outburst, and End Hostilities. Wanted to go for the lower costed ones to keep the deck relatively on a low curve, because I do run a lot of high costed creatures. I run a little bit of control magic, as we have Counterspell, Dissolve, Dissipate, Cancel, Scatter the Winds, and Rewind. You'll notice I do not have a Remand in here, as well as Spell Crumple and Hinder. The reason I don't have Spell Crumple and Hinder is because I don't like the idea of putting the cards on the bottom of my opponent's library. I want them either exiled or in the graveyard. And then the reason I don't run Remand is I just don't have one yet. But I will say Rewind is an all-star, especially when you're running a flicker deck that I can counter a spell to untap those lands to still have more counter mana open, or to be able to have flicker mana open, so it's really nice. For my removal, I run a bit of removal. I run Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile, Curse of Swine, which I really feel like Curse of Swine is an all-star. And the reason I say that is because at base mana 3, you can exile a creature and they get a 2/2 boar. That's really on par with like Crib Swap, that gives them 3 cost to exile a creature and they get a 1/1 changeling, but it scales so well. It's just such a good spell. Reality Shift, Crib Swap, Devouring Light, and Capsize, because removal is nice, and reusable removal is nicer. Then we have our flicker effects in spell form. So we have Cloud Shift, Momentary Blink, Otherworldly Journey, Turn to Mist, Ghostway, and Ghostly Flicker. Ghostly Flicker is probably the most standout spell because it exiles 2 creatures and or artifacts. So basically if I flicker like a Mnemonic Wall or Archaeomancer or Scrivener that let me take back a spell when they come in, then I can take back the Ghostway and it will flicker another spell as well. So if I have, say, Peregrine Drake that lets me untap lands, and Mnemonic Wall down and I cast this, I have infinite mana, which is really nice. Or if I have down Archaeomancer and Spine of Vishsa, I can flicker them both, destroy a permanent, and get this back. It just has so many utility uses. It's so nice. And I don't know if you can tell, but mine's foil in it. The foiling effect around the hands is some of the best foiling I think I've seen. I run a handful of Planeswalkers, not too many. We run Elspeth Knight Errant. I don't know if you can how well you can see her. 4 cost, 4 loyalty. She's mostly in there for the ability to put a creature into play, just to give me some defense. She does have some other abilities with the emblems and the buff, but she's predominantly in there just so that I can have a constant stream of tokens. Then we have Elspeth Transcendent. She's mostly in here to give my spells rebound. That's really what she's in here for. I know she does have an emblem that opponents can't cast creatures. Is it creatures? Oh, sorry. Opponents can't cast non-creatures. And, you know, that's not something I generally want to cast unless it's late game. I'm just trying to end it. But it's pretty cool. I mostly have her in there for the rebound effect. Then we have Venser. Venser, I think, is a standout Planeswalker in blue-white. I can flicker something. Well, actually, he doesn't really flicker. He exiles slide to turn, so it's like a slow flicker. But I can flicker something more or less, make all my creatures unblockable, or get his emblem. And his emblem says whenever I cast a spell, I can exile target permanent. All 3 of his are phenomenal abilities, and I love him for it. Then we have Tamio the Moonsage. We're really in there to try to get her emblem off, because her emblem says whenever a card would go to my graveyard, it goes to my hand instead. That is a phenomenal ability to have in a deck like this, where I want to flicker my spells anyways. So with something like a Cloud Shifter or a Momentary Blink or a Ghostway, a Ghostly Flicker rather, when I cast those and they go right back to my hand, I can cast them again and again and again. It really makes a huge, huge difference. And then we have Elspeth Sun's Champion, mostly in there for the token production as well. You know, I don't have a lot of ways to produce tokens to defend myself, so the 2 Elspeths really help with that. And since this is a flicker deck, one of the things we'll be flickering a lot of is our creatures. So now we have our creatures, and we're going to go over those, and I'll tell you why this is the Nightmare Weaver deck. So we have Wall of Omens, draw a card. Mistmeta Witch can flicker things. Flicker-Wisp flickers when it comes in. Archaeomancer to get back my spells. Clever Impersonator, Clone, Gigantoplasm, Phyrexian Metamorph, Sakashimi Student, Sakashimi the Imposter, and that's it, I guess. Are all my clone effects. I run 4 or 5, maybe 6 clone effects. Venser Shaper Savant, probably one of the most OP creatures at the 4 mana slot. Being able to pseudo counter a spell or bounce a permanent is so nice. And he has Flash. Then we have Restoration Angel for a flicker effect. Brago King Eternal. This guy is just a monster. When he deals combat damage, you can flicker any number of non-land permanents you control. Guy's just an absolute house if he connects. And we have Riftwind Cloudscape to bounce a permanent, Muldrifter to draw cards, Peregrine Drake because he's a combo machine letting you untap lands, Mnemonic Wall, get back an instant sorcery, Scrivener does the same. We have Karmic Guide for the res, Draining Welk for the counter, Deadeye Navigator because he's basically a combo machine and everybody knows it and that's really all he is. And here's where we get to the Nightmare Weaver part of my deck. The last set of creatures here, the last ones in my hand, are really just creatures that cause nothing but chaos for your opponents. So first we have Phyrexian Ingested to exile creatures. Then we have Angel Serenity because the creatures that I flicker are going to be going back to their owner's hands. Luminate Primordial to exile a creature because the opponent will gain life, but I'm not really worried about the life once I get the board controlled and locked and I exile all your creatures and I can just Alpha Strike every turn. Avacyn Angel of Hope, Artisan of Kozilek, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Kozilek Butcher of Truth, Desolation Twin, and Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. So these are really where the nightmares come in, is all these big nasty Eldrazi's and Avacyn. The idea is to get out Rasputin and use his mana to cast these guys a little quicker. And it's generally pretty effective, you know, it works out pretty well. They all have their nasty abilities, we all know what they do, and we all hate what they do, but now I'm going to show you a couple of the strategies and the synergies that I have. Because the deck can do some pretty cool stuff with the flicker effects that it does have. So I'm going to show you just a couple of the synergies that I have. Nothing too crazy, too fancy, but I just want to show you a couple of them. Alright, so let's talk about some of the synergies I have here. Firstly, I have Deadeye Navigator and Peregrine Drake. If you pair these two together, you have infinite mana because you pay the 2 to flicker Peregrine Drake. When he comes in, you untap 5 lands. So what you want to do is you tap 5 lands, float the mana, use 2 of it to flicker him out and back in, and that'll untap 5 lands, so you net 3 mana every time you do it. From that point, you have infinite mana. You can also do the same exact thing with Peregrine Drake and Mnemonic Wall, or Archaeomancer, or Scrivener, and Ghostly Flicker. You're going to cast Ghostly Flicker. It's going to flicker him. When he triggers, you're going to take back the Ghostly Flicker. When he comes in, you're going to untap your 5 lands, and since this costs 3, you're netting 2 mana still. But that still gives you unlimited mana. And that's also very, very effective. So we have 2 different ways in the deck that can generate infinite mana, and multiple ways to do it off those 2 creatures. Then we also have Deadeye Navigator and Draining Well to be able to counter any spells for 2 mana. We have Deadeye Navigator and my General to generate tons and tons of colorless mana, or we can swap it out and go the Mnemonic Wall route with Ghostly Flicker and my General as well. That will also produce quite a bit of mana. Oop. 1 second, dropped a card. Let's see, what else do we have here. One of the cooler effects I have is probably Brago with Strionic Resonator, and also if I have down Peregrine Drake. So the way this works is I attack him with Brago when he hits. So when he hits, I can untap any number. His ability goes on the stack, and I can untap any number of things. So what I'm going to do is, his ability goes in the stack, I'm going to copy his ability with the Strionic Resonator, and I'm going to tap 2 lands for that, and 3 more lands just to float the mana. Now that ability is going to resolve, so it's going to untap him, and he's going to flicker and come back in. He's going to untap 5 lands, so we still have 3 mana floating. This is going to untap, and then we have Brago again. Brago is now out of the picture, we don't need him anymore. So then I have the second Brago trigger on the stack from the first one that I copied. So I'm going to copy it again with Strionic Resonator. I'm going to tap 3 more lands to float the mana with Peregrine Drake on the stack as well. And then they're both going to flicker. It's going to untap this, and I can do it forever because I just keep copying the original trigger, only letting the second one resolve. So that gives me unlimited flicker effects for my entire non-land board. And the reason I get the lands back is because of my Peregrine Drake. So if I add in clone effects, I can clone Peregrine Drake more times and untap more and more lands and just go bananas. And just get a lot of stuff going on. And then we also have the ability to flicker this as well and just destroy multiple permanents. So I mean, as you can see, besides the fact that I just have some endgame beaters, we do just have some cool synergy in the deck that really helps it have a pretty strong late game. But yeah. This is my Rasputin Dreamweaver, aka Rasputin Nightmare Weaver EDH deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This has been Derek with Tap and Turn Gaming. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. We're getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers, and we're pretty excited about that. So yeah, share away, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. We reply to just about every single comment we see. And we will catch you guys later. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.